Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us from in the world today, and welcome to the loudest FIDIC webinar, where we will be highlighting some of the successful and impactful initiatives being undertaken by FIDIC's global member associations and how they are making a positive difference to member companies in the regions and the wider industry. My name is Alfredo Ingletti, and I'm one of the vice presidents of FIDIC, the International Federation of Consulting Engineers, and I'm delighted to give this welcome on behalf of the FIDIC board. Today's webinar, which is titled How a Collective Industry Voices Makes Change Happen, has been organized by FIDIC's Directors and Secretaries Advisory Council, supported by the FIDIC Membership Committee. Over the next 90 minutes or so, we will highlight some of the best practice success stories of FIDIC member associations and how these have benefited consulting engineering firms and the industry in their countries. FIDIC's member associations, we have around 100 globally, are involved in a wide range of activities in their geopolitical regions, which bring the industry together around common issues and to address key challenges. Our webinar will highlight a number of positive initiatives being undertaken with a view to sharing learning amongst attendees. FIDIC's member associations do brilliant work across the world on behalf of their member firms. They represent the industry to governments, founders, and other important stakeholders, and they assist their members by seeking to influence the business environment in which they operate. The initiative you will hear about today have all made a positive impact and benefit the industry in the countries concerned. The webinar today will be chaired by Helen Davidson, who is the CEO of ACE New Zealand, and also the chair of FIDIC's Directors and Secretaries Advisory Council. The speaker will highlight a number of best practice success stories through the experiences of FIDIC member association from Australia, Kenya, and Germany, who will show how these have benefited the member firms and the industry more generally. Speakers at the event are Sasha Stever, Director of BBI, FIDIC's member association in Germany, Jane Mutulili, Chair of the Association of Consulting Engineers in Kenya, and Jonathan Cartledge, CEO of Consult Australia. I'm looking forward to hearing their insights. You also have the opportunity to ask questions, so please offer those through the chat box during the webinar. Now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce the chair of today's event, Helen Davidson, CEO of ACE New Zealand, and also the chair of FIDIC's Directors and Secretaries Advisory Council. Helen will introduce the speakers in turn as they speak and guide us through the webinar. Helen, floor is yours.
Kia ora. Thank you, Alfredo, for that fantastic introduction, and welcome again to all of you here to learn how a collective industry voice makes change happen. As Alfredo has said, I'm Helen. I'm the Chief Executive at ACE New Zealand. I'm also formerly a General Manager at Engineering New Zealand. So I've been in the association game for some time now. And I am passionate about the role that associations can play in creating positive change for their members and the wider communities that we collectively serve. I've experienced firsthand how associations are powerful communities for far reaching change and impact. The world is quite a challenging place right now. Our populations are changing, climate change is delivering us more and more severe weather events. We suffer from security, political, and economic uncertainty, and we have immense opportunities and challenges ahead with AI and digitalisation. All this weighs really heavily on our sector as engineers and other specialist technical consultants are expected to deliver more for less in increasingly complex environments with significant workforce shortages. And yet, within this fractured environment, our members come together to work with us, their associations, volunteering huge amounts of their time to do good in the world. And we have the privilege of supporting them, standing up for them, championing for them, galvanizing and leading them. So to all the directors and secretaries in the room, don't we have wonderful jobs? These wonderful roles we hold are also incredibly challenging. Most of us have very small teams and very limited budgets, and members want and need more from us than we can often give. That's why the more that we can share lessons and initiatives with each other, the more we can learn from each other, the better. The stronger our sector will be, and the stronger our global communities will be. And that's why I'm so looking forward to today's conversation as we hear from 3 associations who are doing great work to champion and support their members and communities so that we all might learn and grow our collective capabilities. So without further ado, this is how it's going to work today. We're going to hear from each of our speakers one by one as they share their initiatives with us. They'll each speak for somewhere around 5 to 10 minutes each. After we've heard from everyone, then we'll move to Q&A, so question and answer. We have plenty of time for Q&A, so please make sure you send your questions through. And you can share your questions, as Alfredo said, through the chat function on your Zoom screen there in front of you. I will pick them, and please know that I will pick them up and work through them when we get to our Q&A. So for now, it's my pleasure to introduce you to our first speaker, Sasha Stoyer, Managing Director of VBI, who will be talking to us about an amazing campaign developed to attract people into the sector. So over to you now, Sasha.
Thank you very much, Helen. Yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about our campaign we started 2 years ago because we thought in the VBI in Germany, we face 3 challenges. The consulting engineers are not visible, like the opposite to the architects. It's mostly talked about buildings and building, but not the work before this. And in Germany, we have a huge lack of staff in our industry, and we need thousands of more who would work as a consulting engineer. So we work together with an agency, communications agency, one of the 5 biggest ones in Germany, to develop this campaign. Next slide. Thank you. We identified 4 target groups: the political public in general, clients, young professionals, and at least engineering offices. We asked what's the core that we want to transport in this campaign. We said the consulting and planning engineers are creative, confident, and optimistic, and we want the campaign to show exactly this. And that's why we need something tangible, a label, a coined word, a term that unmistakably captures what they do. And we found it to be the Imagineers. In German, it's die Ausdenker. It's not the 100% translation of the Ausdenker, but very close to it. So it's the Imagineers. And this is how it looks like. The communication professionals developed a word mechanism that we always say something that we do, that we imagine, and ask whether you can imagine this. And we found real consulting engineers from our member firms who are shown here, like Carolyn. She is an engineer and she says, I can. So we asked our member firms to send us 10 diverse employees of their member firms who should look good or be able to shot in the photo shooting very good. And so we had a 2-day photo shooting, as you see here. And that's the result. We told them to look optimistic and like they just develop something. They just imagined something, and we found those texts that are mostly about sustainable and other very relevant topics. Here you see all the 10 testimonials of the campaign. And we put them up on big screens on buses, as you see here, in the subway system, like all over Berlin as the capital of Germany, but also elsewhere where our regional associations supported this. You see here a big airport in Germany where we had this huge screen up. And that's the most important newspaper of Germany, die Frankfurter Allgemeine, where we had this big ad on page number 5. And on this day, we put this paper thing wrapping the newspaper. And this way it was brought to all 700 members of the German parliament in the Reichstag building. So they all got our campaign, including the whole government, including the Chancellor of Germany at this day in their hands. And of course, we were online. Here you see LinkedIn as our most important social media network. And now we will develop this campaign to phase 2, and we only focus on the target group, young professionals. We want to stand out and convince young professionals of the work in our planning offices. So we asked the communications agency again to develop the campaign with us. And we now want to highlight the work in the planning offices to focus on the Gen Z to start a career in our planning offices. And therefore, we developed the campaign in how it looks like and on how the wording is. Our goal is to reach every 10th student of the 10th grade in the cities you see here, which are the bigger cities in Germany. So we will employ students who go to the schools and talk to the 10th grade students about our work. And they will take with them the new media of the campaign. So here you see again how it looked in the first phase, and now it changes to reach the Gen Z, and it will look like this. And we will publish a booklet with like several 100,000 of copies, a presentation, and a short film with the new testimonials. We will shoot tomorrow. There will be 22 young people coming there to this location here. And this is how the booklet will look like. And again, our goal is to give every 10th student of the 10th grade one of these booklets to highlight how great it is to work in our planning offices. Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sasha. What an amazing initiative and such impactful collateral. I love the phrase "the Imagineers." It's just a really beautiful captivation of what our members do. So I'm looking forward to delving into that a little bit more when we have our question time. But while I've got the chance, I want to say all the best for the photo shoot tomorrow. That sounds very exciting. Very exciting. So now we'll move on to our second speaker. So next we have Jonathan Cartledge, Chief Executive of Consult Australia, to talk to us about a fantastic collaborative initiative they've been working on to bring the sector together around net zero. So over to you now, Jonathan.
Thanks very much, Helen, and shout out to Sasha for that fantastic presentation. Definitely looking forward to diving into that one. So I'm here with Consult Australia. We've been around now for 70 years, working with those businesses across design, advisory, and engineering. And the vision that we've got at Consult Australia, as it's captured here, is for that thriving consulting industry as it supports a better economy for our members, for their clients, for governments, and for the communities they serve. And like all of us all of us MAs. Our advocacy is the core purpose that goes to the heart of why we exist and why we were founded as an association. And we distill that advocacy across 3 priority areas at the intersection of procurement, the procurement of our members' services, the people, the teams employed by our member businesses, and the productivity of the economy and of the projects that our members work on. And when we talk about productivity and we look at the challenges in the environment in which all of our members are working, that issue of sustainability is core to that, which is why I'm keen to just talk a little about our collaborative approach to sustainability in our advocacy in Australia, because that collaborative approach is at the centre of the advocacy that we do. We operate, as I'm sure all of the member associations do, in a really crowded market for not-for-profits and lobbying associations and professional associations. In Australia, there are about 700,000 not-for-profits operating, and these that I've captured on this slide are just those that we work with and alongside, that are hearing from other sectors of the economy and other business groups and professional groups on issues that are relevant to our member firms as well. So there's a trickiness, I think, for all of us in navigating an increasingly crowded landscape of associations as we speak to government and try and find a unique voice and try and have influence in that domain, which is why we talk about collaborative advocacy, if we flick to the next slide. So when we take positions forward, one of the first things that we do is to look alongside those associations with which we work and that work alongside us in the Australian market to identify where we can work together. So it's always much more persuasive for us to take positions to government with a single voice, a combined voice, if you like. And these are just some of the organisations that we work closely with as we prosecute those priorities around procurement, productivity, and people. But the crystallisation of that collaborative advocacy effort, I think, in the Australian context, has its landmark, if you like, in the Australian Sustainable Built Environment Council. The Australian Sustainable Built Environment Council is unique in that it brings together over 35 different organisations in the Australian market and has been doing so now for 20 years to form across those organisations a collective view on those policy recommendations that will make a difference to delivering a more sustainable built environment in Australia. Worth noting that it was founded in the aftermath of the Sydney Olympics in 2004 and really reflected what was then the first Green Games, and is a testament to how some of those major events can have a long-standing impact on influence in the market. So all of these organisations on this slide are captured through the Australian Sustainable Built Environment Council, alongside universities and alongside governments. So governments join ASBEC as observer members to participate and hear about the issues that are of importance to industry as they come together and vote on those recommendations that we want to take forward. And as we structure ourselves through this group to identify those policy issues and projects that we can use to campaign and drive change in the Australian market. So how do we do that through ASBEC? Just skip forward to the next slide. Through crystallised priorities. So the 4 priorities that focus ASBEC's agenda, and these change over time depending on what's happening in the market. You can bounce back to that previous slide. Those 4 priorities around sustainable, decarbonised communities. They're focused on regulation, codes and standards, how we improve our building stock, and specifically as a new group and focus for ASBEC on how we deliver infrastructure net zero by 2050, which I know is a challenge that we all face. Each of those 4 areas taps into the ASBEC membership to both fund and resource campaigns and evidence and policy thought leadership, and identify those positions that are shared across all of those different organisations that can then be taken forward to governments. So effectively, this group becomes a clearinghouse for policy that government can go to, so that rather than going to 35 different organisations, they can come to one organisation and get a single view on what the priorities are for sustainability in that context. So when we look at infrastructure as a subset of that, and we'll skip forward to the next slide, our focus is very much on how do we deliver net zero infrastructure, which means that we need to understand the skills that we need to deliver infrastructure net zero in the Australian market. We need to understand what we mean by net zero, and we need to understand where that capability is going to be led and how we can work with government to drive that with meaningful targets over the next 30 years. So our initial focus as we do that work with infrastructure net zero, which is part of that ASBEC coalition, is focusing on how we define net zero, which again is a reference point for government if we skip through to the next slide, and also understanding those roles and skills that the Imagineers will need, to take Sasha's term, as we look at those projects that need to be delivered and where that Imagineering is going to happen and what skills we need to meet that. And these are sizable projects, would be my I would note in conclusion. They take significant resourcing, both of all of those participants in the ASBEC community, but also in terms of how they're funded. But the beauty of this as an outcome is that it has that collective support across wider industry, across all of the professional organisations, across the university sector. So it creates quite an impetus for government to listen and to adopt. And that over the last 20 years, we've seen the impact of that in practical policy wins across governments in Australia that reflect those policy priorities. So I'll leave it there.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jonathan. That's such a powerful collaboration, and I know there's a lot more to delve into as we get to question time. So I look forward to that, and just remind everyone in the audience to put your questions through into the chat. I think you made an excellent point there about how we can stand out in quite a crowded association and not-for-profit market where everyone's wanting a voice, and people's capacity to listen and take on messages gets more and more limited. And I'm delighted to expand on that and hear a little bit more about advocacy as we welcome Jane Mutulili, who is chair of the Association of Consulting Engineers of Kenya, who's going to speak about some work that you've been doing, Jane, with your association to provide a strong voice for your members as well. So over to you now, Jane.
Thank you very much, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, wherever you are. Let me just say something about the Association of the Consulting Engineers of Kenya. We were formed in 1968, and our mission is to promote the advancement of professionalism amongst consulting engineers in Kenya. We have 98 firms who are member firms, and we are, I think, now at 120 members. Those are full members. We have almost 400 young or future engineers, as we call them in FIDIC, and therefore we are growing. What I'm going to discuss today, I think everybody has their own issues, and our issues as a developing country is recently are the floods. If you're all aware that, or most of you would be aware, that we had very heavy rains in the month of April and part of May, and it affected a lot of our infrastructure. So part of what I want to discuss is the effect of that flood, how the Association of Consulting Engineers of Kenya is dealing with it or has dealt with it. We had the immediate responses, and now we have slightly more long-term responses. Who is involved, the stakeholders in this, and how are we working with the government towards what we are planning to do, and what are the roles of our firms, and what do we hope to achieve. I'll try to be, I have about 10 minutes, so I'll try to be very fast. So what was the problem? And I'll start with the direct effect on human life. We have an estimated 267 people who died during the floods, direct cause of the floods, at least 188 injured, 75 missing, and about 300 people, that is about 56 families were displaced. Sorry, is that on my part? Sorry, just. I'm sorry about that. So yes, that's the effect of the direct effect on the human life. On livestock, we lost about 10,000 livestock which drowned actually during the rains. The crops, we lost about 42,000 acres of cropland. And on roads, we had at least 61 major roads that were damaged, about 900 businesses damaged, 2,000 schools damaged, and water sources and health facilities, a lot of them. I think you get the gist of what I'm trying to see, the devastation of the floods. Indeed, we had about 3 counties that were completely locked off from access. The access was not possible to 3 of the counties, from one county to the other one. We have our generation, power generation, hydropower generation. We have some dams, 7 fork dams, and they all were overflowing and therefore caused downstream flooding. So how is the Association of Consulting Engineers of Kenya dealing with this? The immediate response for us was ASEC members and other engineers, we came together and did a fundraising to this was organized or led by, we have our Institution of Engineers of Kenya. We have a president there, and through him, all the engineers donated some food, some money, food and non-food items, and cash.
You're on mute there, Jane, I think.
I'm on mute, sorry. Okay.
There, you're back with us. That's all
Are
good.
you okay now? Can
Yes.
you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
So I was saying, how was the association involved or dealing with it? First of all, I said we had a fundraiser, so to speak, not just fundraiser. We donated money and non-food items and cash towards a kitty that was being organized by the greater body of engineers. And this was donated to this was given to the Red Cross, which was doing the coordinations and interventions around the country. As ASEC members, we held press conferences in all the major media houses. I think we had about 5 or 6 media engagement. We wrote papers, and this was to just educate people on the dangers of blocking water drainages and building on the water courses. We gave examples of estates that were on floodplains. They had been stopped, but they went through the court and they were given rights to build on the floodplains, and this had a total effect on them because they were flooded. There have been people who have written on dailies, the newspapers, just to educate people. There was a task force that was formed by the president, and we lobbied for engineers to be there because we were trying to repair the infrastructure. What is our long-term response? Now, on the long-term response, because this has happened now, but it's been happening and it's likely to happen again. So what you're trying to do is to assess the current various ways and assess the damage that has been caused and update various hydrological studies that have been done earlier, assess the state of infrastructure following the floods, and recommend rapid mitigation methods for flooding, prepare technical infrastructure disaster report highlighting that. And to do this, we are taking baseline studies of what had happened, aerial mapping, and study on historical satellites. Who is involved? We've involved the government and all the government parastatals and bodies and roads authorities, water authorities, Kenya Railways, because those are the ones who are affected. Most important, how are we practically dealing with the government? As I said, we are trying to assess the government infrastructure. Almost the whole the infrastructure belongs to the government. Those are the roads, the bridges, the water. And to do this, we need to go through the government bodies so that we need to access their maps and what they have. As members, what we've offered to do is, as members, to offer our services. We are not charging for the studies that we want to undertake, but we, of course, would like to get the just the reimbursables, for example, the transportation and the maps that you're going to get. So those ones, we want the government to pay for that. But the members have donated their time, so they're not charging the consultancy fee for that. And if we get that, we hope to establish the different levels of our capacity and intention within the government and the government bodies, so that as we work with the members, with the government employees, then we'll build their capacity. We want to generate an informative trades assessment of what has been happening, conduct a baseline assessment of existing legal frameworks and institutional challenges. We do an extensive mapping of the city of infrastructure. By the way, this we are only doing it in Nairobi, others will not be able, we can't afford to do it everywhere. And then conduct a detailed situation assessment of the drainage system. Finally, as we do that, we develop options for economical upgrade of greenfields, develop accurate and reliable evidence-based floods, and develop a Nairobi flood hazard map. Finally, develop high-level preliminary drainage hydraulic model and design for the proposed recommendations. This is very ambitious. We may not be able to do that, but as I said, we are discussing with the government. We will offer what we can. And I must say that we've done quite a bit of discussions with them. If they accept our offer, then we'll be good to go. This will take a bit of time, at least 6 months, but at least we've started the discussion. I'd like to leave it there for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane, for sharing the work that you have been doing with your members to respond and provide value through to your government and your communities in what is clearly a really challenging time. So the work you've been doing sounds really fantastic. That brings us to the end of the formal presentations, and what amazing initiatives. So congratulations to all of you for the work you've done on behalf of your members and the communities we collectively serve. I love how our examples cover responses to a range of globally relevant issues. So we've got workforce shortages, our path to net zero, how we support members and the government and their response to the rising tide of extreme weather events. In these initiatives, you can see from the stories that you're sharing, they've been done through leadership, through advocacy, through collaboration, about public and political education, and through connecting with others. And these behaviours sit really well at the heart of effective associations. So it's been great hearing about how you've each brought those out in the initiatives you've been doing. I would like to open the floor now to questions from the audience or comments on the presentations that we've heard today. So do pop those through in the chat. I do have I'll just start with a comment that we have here for you, Sasha. So great presentation. And the comment is, would it be correct to recognise the action or the campaign you've been doing as a kind of STEM ambassador mission in Germany? So that's the question, and I guess I would add to it, are there other campaigns that other associations are doing to promote STEM in Germany, and if so, how have you aligned with them through the process?
I don't know STEAM, so I need more information on that.
Sorry, STEM is science, technology, engineering, and maths, an acronym.
I'm
So
open
I think that's what we mean.
to any collaboration. So we said from the beginning we want everyone to share this campaign. So even companies can put their logo on it and publish it, and also like the chambers can use it, and other organizations. We are absolutely fine with making it big by everyone sharing the campaign.
Wonderful. And what's been the response, Sasha? Have you been able to measure the reach and the impact of the campaign so far?
In this first phase, we said it's only an image campaign, so we don't want to measure it. We've all seen it, and there was some feedback by politicians, but it was not a KPI campaign in the beginning. Now in the second phase, as I said, we want to reach every 10th student of the 10th grade in Germany. This will be measurable more than the first phase.
Wonderful. I loved the initiative. I think you said you packaged up the paper and sent it to all 700 members of your government. What inspired that, and what was the response that you got from the government?
There was no response, like in the formal way, but they said they want to support the campaign, like giving money of some ministries to make the campaign bigger. So this will be the next step.
That's great to hear. Okay, so where are we? I'm just trying to keep up with the questions in the chat. There's another one for you here, Sasha. So while I've got you in the hot seat, we'll pass this one on to you. So how did you determine the level of investment you wanted to make in the campaign?
Where is it? We had some money left from the pandemic that we didn't spend on events. So we had quite a large budget for the campaign. And we said we want to invest like more than you would normally invest in the development of the campaign. So it should be really good. The pictures should be really good. The text should be really good. So we invested in the development about 100,000 euros. And then like the next year we put up a budget for the media itself, for the screens, the ads, that was about 200,000 euros. But you can normally not do this out of a normal budget. It's mostly done by the pandemic money that wasn't spent on events and other things during the pandemic.
Yeah, thank you. That's great that you had the opportunity to make that investment. And I think about where we and associations in different situations who might not have available funds, some tips or tricks to help do that might be to see if any of your firms have videographers or collateral that you can use as a starting point to build off. Would you encourage people to sort of still try something like this, working with their firms in a more limited way?
Yeah, that's mostly the case, that you already start with a media idea, saying I want a film, or I want an ad, or I want a good picture. And we started differently, and we said to the agency that we hired, we don't know what the outcome should be. The first thing that we want to have is a really good story that makes our business visible. And if we think the result is really good, then we would go to this, like I showed, biggest newspaper in Germany to put an ad in it. If it's not that good, we find something else. So we really put an effort in the quality of the campaign in the beginning. And I think that's what you see in the end. It's very high quality. Yeah, this was our effort this time, not producing some certain kind of media, but a very good visual and text idea.
I think that's a great advice as a starting point. So work out what you want to say, what your story is, who your audience is, and build it out from there. Taking a step at a time, like you have over several years. So that's a fantastic takeaway, I think, for people who are thinking about how they might do something similar in their own countries. Okay, I have a question now for Jonathan. Jonathan, thank you for your presentation. And infrastructure net zero, as you've explained to us, grew out of an existing collaboration with the ASBEC Council. I hope I've got that acronym right. What would be your advice to members who want to start a collaboration like this, but maybe don't have an existing body that can provide an initial platform for action?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's hard fought for a collaborative effort like ASBEC, and the early years are not necessarily easy because you're bringing together organizations that potentially have opposing positions on a whole raft of different issues. If you take, for example, the property developers versus the planners versus the architects, like there are plenty of areas where there's disagreement between those groups that make up ASBEC, as we refer to it. And I think the critical thing as you come together is to work out those areas where you agree and focus on those. And those areas of agreement present a really powerful opportunity to focus and to remove all of those distractions from all of those sort of side conversations where there might not be perfect agreement. And I think key to identifying that is having the right leaders in the room that want to work collaboratively and take that forward. So it might be, you might start with the 5 associations that have a natural alignment, bring those CEOs into the room, get the buy-in at the CEO level, and resource it. I think there is a need with these groups to put some money on the table, to give it a budget and give it a life that can extend as those negotiations and that focus happens. And that's not a lot of money. If you think about ASBEC as an example, it has 35, 40 organizations now within the membership, all contributing somewhere in the order of 5,000 Australian dollars. That's not a massive investment, but what that enables is it to be staffed with a person who can then take forward the agenda. But most of the effort with ASBEC goes into the contributions that the members make in task groups and actual work, so that the work happens to support the advocacy that goes through to governments.
Great, thanks, Jonathan. And a follow-up question: when you have so many members working together and you're one of the whole, how do you ensure that your organisation, or Consult Australia in your case, is seen by its members as making a difference, and that it's valuable for their member association to be investing in this collaborative initiative?
The great benefit for a member association like Consult Australia with ASBEC is that it frees us up to do a whole lot of other stuff. So I don't need to invest in a lot of that thinking around net zero or sustainability in the same way, because it's being dealt with through that collective, which means that my resources can then go into other areas of interest. But I can tell the members, we are dealing with that, but we're dealing with it in a really collaborative way. So it actually allows me to focus on other things, while ASBEC and our support for ASBEC enables that focus on their core issues. And then if I have an issue that is really critical to our members and I can prosecute that through ASBEC, then our members have the benefit of that wider industry support for an issue that might be really important to them. So it works both ways.
Great, thank you. You're not off the hook yet. I've still got a couple more questions for you come through. We have a question which is, can Jonathan give examples of initiatives ASPEC has been instrumental in guiding government policy? So what are some other areas that ASPEC has provided support through?
So often in changing legislation or regulation. So a good example in Australia, and I'm sure there are similar regulations internationally, where the standard to which we build our buildings, our homes or our commercial buildings is set by a national piece of regulation that changes over time, and as there's been pressure to make those buildings more sustainable, there's pressure on that regulation for it to do a better job of that. So ASPEC has lobbied very successfully for improvements in that regulation, and it's won those changes, and it's won them in spite of opposition from very powerful lobby groups that exist to oppose some of those changes. And it's been successful because of the sheer number of organisations that it represents. So if you have 35 organisations asking for a change to regulation, that's a powerful voice against the one very influential lobby group that might be competing and saying that that's a bad idea. So it's really critical that that voice where regulation needs to change, but where there might be opposition to it, it can be quite powerful. And there are multiple instances where it's proven its success in the face of some of that other opposition that we know exists in the market. And that's not something Consult Australia could ever achieve on our own. We simply don't have a strong enough or influential enough voice, but when we join together with the other 35, we can get some of those changes through.
Thank you. As I reflect on our initiatives that have been most influential or impactful, it is where we have collaborated and brought our voices together with others on those issues that we're aligned on. So absolutely agree about the power of the collective, and that it doesn't mean, it means it frees you up to provide to focus on other areas as well, which is all a member benefit and value to your members. Thank you for sharing that, Jonathan. I've got a few questions for you now, Jane, that have come through. Jane, you said that your members were providing some initial advice through to the government for free. Question is, how sustainable is that going forward, and when do they hope, at what point will they be paid for the work that they do? And what role do you play in advocating for that?
Thank you very much. As I said, we can only afford to do Nairobi. We can't propose or request our members to do the whole country, because then it will not make commercial sense. So we are hoping that at least with Nairobi. Let me also say that it depends a lot on the government, because we are offering only our time. If I'm going to use fuel, if I'm going to use anything, that should be reimbursable. So that's the conversation we are having. We've not gotten to the point where we are starting with just a proposal that we have given. As I said, outside Nairobi, it cannot be sustained. But if they accept our proposal that they value our time, we give them our time, and then they just give the reimbursables, I think we can manage Nairobi.
Thank you. And has your association been promoting the work that your members are doing on this flooding issue to help raise the profile for your members and for your association?
Yes, we've done that a lot, just appearing on the TV and on newspapers. I think that's done quite a bit of that, and also talking from a point of knowledge. We have a lot of during the dry season, we have a lot of people building on the dry areas, not knowing that that area is actually prone to flooding. So that's what we are trying to show members, or to sensitize them, that even if this area is dry, it's marked as a flood zone, don't build there. A lot of the flooding and the lives that have been lost and property that has been lost is actually due to building on the flood zone. But then again, given the level of information, then you may not blame the people who are doing that. So we are just trying to sensitize them and tell them, even if it's dry, it gets wet and it gets flood.
It's amazing, isn't it, that sometimes it takes an event like extreme weather events and flooding. We've certainly had that in New Zealand to really grow awareness and start a public education campaign around where and how we build.
Yes. We actually have one of our engineers in New Zealand on that project.
Oh,
yes,
well, thank you. Now, isn't that collaboration? What a great example. Still have time for questions if people want to put more into the chat. I do have a question that's come through, and I'll put it out there for anyone to answer. It's an important question, but not directly related to one of our initiatives. And the question is around how we involve younger engineers and next generation in different programs and initiatives and engineering decisions. So what's a way we can help bring out their innovative ideas in the engineering field? I guess it's, Sasha, when your campaign attracts young people into the Imagineers and into the profession, how do we uplift them and give them those opportunities and that voice? So does anyone want to share any thoughts on that? Jane, you're on my screen right now, if you have anything to share.
Yes, as I said, we are only around 120 full members of ASEC, and we have, I think our number for future leaders is actually exponentially growing. We've allowed them a lot of space. We've allowed them they have their own council, they have their own programs. The only thing that they need to do is to align their program with our program so that we don't collide anywhere along the way. So with that, when we have functions, we allow them, we give them a lot of concession. We don't charge them full amount. And I think we've given them a lot of visibility. And therefore, for the young engineers who want to join ASEC Future Leaders, they have they feel free. So I think that has given them a lot of a lot of space and a lot of confidence to join that. I wish we could do more. I really like what Sasha is doing, that, just that promotion. They do help us a lot in promoting in secondary schools, in high schools. They have outreach programs and they go around the county just on their own voluntary time, probably just raise funds for the transport and all that. So they've done a lot of that, and they also feel very useful. So that's their space. So I think with that, they are doing quite a bit.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jane. And Jonathan, in your work around infrastructure net zero, has there been a focus on opportunity and making sure that that voices of younger professionals are coming through in that work?
Yeah, it's an interesting reflection. I think our focus, one of the focuses we have through Infrastructure Net Zero is looking really hard at what the skills and capabilities will be to deliver net zero. So when we look at existing engineering occupations and roles, understanding as we move towards quite a different landscape in 2050, how are those roles going to change over the next 5 or 10 years? What are the skills that are going to be required, and what's the gap in the market to provide them? So I think that piece of work is just starting, and I think it's a good call out that it will necessitate some conversations with the younger professionals coming through, because when we look at things like the need for digital skills, I think that's going to look very different over the next 10 years, but to understand what that might look like is really challenging given the pace that the market's moving. So we haven't factored it in, but it's a good spark for us to think about how we might do that as that skills work evolves for infrastructure net zero.
That's a great topic, isn't it? As well as those skills and climate change and resilience and sustainability. You know, one of our younger board members who is a works in the digital space made the comment that with the advent of AI and digitalization, what our grads used to do in the first 2 to 3 years of working in a firm will now be automated. And so how are we training them now to make sure they're ready to come in on day one at what would normally have been a year 3 level? And I don't have the answer, but I think it's a really important thing that we all need to think about.
Definitely.
And Sasha, in terms of your next campaign, it sounds like you are bringing in talent from your young professionals in your member firms to be part of inspiring the next generation. Has that been a deliberate choice so that people can see themselves in a future for their a future career in the sector?
Yeah, I would like to add to Jonathan, like in former times, the owners or CEOs of the companies set the goals and the methods, and like the lack of staff is getting bigger and bigger in Germany in general, but especially in the consulting sector. It's more and more the younger talents setting the goals and the methods. And like you said, Jonathan, it's all about sustainability and digitalization. And we publish a magazine in the VBI 4 times a year, so quarterly. And the next magazine for all our members will put the future leaders, the younger ones, in the focus, and not in the perspective on what can we do to get more younger employees here, but the other way around. So we make the magazine from the perspective of the younger ones, and the headline will probably be "This is us." And they are only talking about themselves, like the whole world would only exist of young people, and you don't have to deal with the old ones. I hope that the older ones, like the owners and the CEOs of our companies, will see, okay, this is the future, this is how they think, these are their methods and their issues, and we should deal with this and them to be successful in the future. And for them, it is no doubt that the future will be sustainable and fully digitalized.
Absolutely. I've got one final question that I want to ask all the panelists. And so I'll start with you, Sasha, since we have the spotlight on you still. I'm keen to understand or get your reflections on how your initiative has helped practically assist your association, so in increasing your influence or your value in the eyes of your members and your wider stakeholders. How important has it been to you for that?
That's a very good question, as this is like we would say, side aspect. We wanted to reach the public in general, but especially concerning like political stakeholders and other associations. They saw with our campaign how professional we are and how high quality we can generate if we want to. So like compared to the building associations we have in Germany, we are very small though. But what we delivered with this campaign was, like in quality terms, much better than much bigger associations and industries are able to present a campaign that I think this will last for years. And our members saw that they can be shown as people and not only their buildings. And this made them very proud. So it helped us with this mission on delivering or organizing transformation for society with our capacity and what we can imagine as Imagineers.
Love it. Thank you for sharing that. Jonathan, same question to you. How important do you think your collaboration with ASBEC and the Infrastructure Net Zero Initiative has been to increase your influence with government and the value that you can bring through to your members and wider stakeholders?
Yeah, there's no question, and like so many MAs, we're really too small to invest in activities that don't deliver value for the organisation or for members. So it's really it delivers our net zero and sustainability agenda on behalf of the members, and it does that really efficiently in terms of the investment that it requires from us. The other sort of probably more subtle benefit of building that network of collaboration is the personal relationships that you carry with you through those organisations over time. So what it means is that in the Australian built environment sector, there's quite a unique level of personal relationships and collaboration that have been built over the 20 years that those organisations have been working together. And even in my case, I've worked across 3 different organisations, and in each role, somehow I've ended up on ASBEC and that peak body in different capacities, and carrying that association network with me in all those organisations. And that is to the benefit of industry and members, because as we all know, that everything happens through those relationships. So a forum that creates those connections has a high level of value, I think, over the long term, and often it's intangible.
Thank you, Jonathan. I absolutely I hear you on the power and intangible power of those connections that you make, and am enjoying exploring with you and some of those other leaders potential Trans-Tasman collaborations too. So looking beyond our own nation and globally, what collaborations can we bring together? Jane, same question to you. How do you think your advocacy work has helped increase your influence as an association and in the profile of your members with the government and with your communities that you serve?
Thank you very much. When I got to be the chair, I'm the first woman chair in the 57 years of existence of ASEC, and there's a lot of hype about that. The kind of advantage we took of that, we visited many government offices. We saw the cabinet secretary, we saw the heads of parastatals, and with that we created a lot of visibility. One of the immediate gains is I saw an advert for consultancy work recently, for engineering work, and one of the parastatals actually indicated that you have to be a registered consulting engineer. Before then, it wasn't direct. You could just be an engineer. So I thought that's a really direct a gain from that visibility. The second one on appointments to board membership, where we make impact on membership. So once they know that we are there, we are the consulting engineers. Then when they're appointing board members, then we are part of the discussion. We are part of the people who are going to be discussed. And also when they want just an expert opinion, then they call upon us and ask them to give them somebody who will go and engage on expert opinion. Those are immediate gains and direct gains. Of course, now when we also create awareness and like what you're doing right now, much as it's going initially for free, but we'll also create awareness of what needs to be done. And then I'm hoping with time now that will now be engaged, or our members will be engaged to continue with that progress. So I think it's very important for that visibility, so that then people can know that you're there and they don't do things behind your back. I just wanted to make a comment about the young, not just the young engineers, or not just, I think the young ones are called Gen Z. If you check what's going on in my country right now, there's a lot of agitation by Gen Z because of what we are calling the finance bill, and they are making a lot of impact. They are the majority. Of course, Africa, we have the youngest population, and that young population is actually on the streets now requesting for reforms, requesting for things to be done in a certain way. So I think it will be to everybody's peril to ignore those people, and especially now that they don't have work, they've gone to school, they've done their degrees, and the country is not able to absorb them. So there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of latent energy inside them, and I think they need a lot of engagement. Yep.
Thank you for sharing that. And yes, if people in the audience aren't aware of what's going on in Kenya, do have a Google and just see what a powerful voice, a collective voice for change is coming through there. And as you were talking, Jane, it made me reflect on the importance as association on having your longer term visions and your plans and your advocacy that you're working on, but also about being agile to take the opportunity in the moment and responding to events as they happen or immediate needs. And sometimes that can be a hard balance as an association, but when you can pull together and respond to like the flooding that you've seen, it's such a powerful way to show your relevance and influence and space as a trusted advisor to your government. So well done on the work that you've done in that space, and I'm sure it's been quite tireless and has involved some reprioritization. And congratulations on your appointment as the first female president. That's phenomenal. So this, I think, will bring us to a close. I haven't seen any fresh questions come through, but I do want to just let the audience know that if questions come up, do send them through to FIDIC, and I know any one of our panelists would be happy to have a conversation about the work that they have been doing. If I reflect on, oh, Jane, great.
Yes,
Your hand
sorry,
up.
I just wanted to, I thought we'd have closing remarks. I want to give my closing remark. What I said that we plan to do is very ambitious. And this is not to preempt what the government will do, but I'm not sure how far we'll engage with them. So I just wanted to say, other than the government, we are also looking for other partners who might actually want to partner with us, or just to, anyway, whatever kind of partnership that we can get. I know we are going to have a meeting with the World Bank. I'm not sure when it's going to be, just to moot that, so that even if the government doesn't do that, at least somebody can, we can get that little support that we are looking for. So I just wanted to say that if I come here next time and we have not done anything, it's not because we haven't tried.
Of course, and great call out for partnerships there. So as I reflect on the conversation today, I think we've heard of a range of initiatives, one from sort of immediate response through to well-planned and coordinated events that involve associations that have had different levels of resources for the work that they do, different sized memberships. But as I think of the takeaways that we can all draw from, no matter what our size, no matter what our capacity as member associations, it's starting with understanding our key message. So what do we want to do? What are we trying to achieve? What's our story? And then how can we bring that forward in a way that creates visibility and influence for our members? So understanding our message and finding our opportunities. So change and impact doesn't always require a big budget. We can collaborate with our members and seek their support. We can collaborate with other associations. And there's a lot of opportunity in there to increase our influence by working together. And another key message I heard was step by step. We don't have to do everything all at once. So do our initiatives piece by piece and grow as we can with our capability and reassess as we go. So those are some of the things that I wrote down when I was thinking about the key messages for how to deliver impactful change through your association for your industry, coming off these 3 examples. So I want to thank all of our speakers for sharing your initiatives with us today. When we share and learn from each other, we're stronger. And I also want to thank all of you who have joined us on the webinar, taking time out of your busy days to understand a little bit more about how a collective industry voice makes change happen. Now, if you enjoyed this webinar, it's my pleasure to let you know about some other upcoming FIDIC events, which are on your screen now. So do check out the FIDIC webinar series. We have the Official Infrastructure Contract Users Conference and Awards in December in London, and of course the FIDIC Global Infrastructure Conference in Geneva from the 8th to the 10th of September. So those are great events that are coming up. There's lots of learning to do from each other, so do make sure that you tune in and get your tickets and come along to those events. So for now, as we say in New Zealand, ka kite. See you next time. Thank you for joining us.